check out Cajun Lights, your complete dog hunting outfitter. Tracking equipment, leashes, collars, dog supplies, and much, much more. You can find it all at CajunLights.com. And don't forget their outstanding lineup of lights. You can find it all at CajunLights.com. Elite nutrition products are the hottest thing on the market right now for dog and horse owners. And Houndsman XP is a dealer. You can find all their products on our website at houndsmanxp.com. Over the past 5 years, you've tuned into this podcast, and I don't take it lightly. We have built a mutual trust. And when I recommend a product, it's because I believe in it, I use it, and I'm given my seal of approval for that. I'm putting my name on that. And with Elite Nutrition products, I do trust it. I do use it. I've seen great results with their essential dogs, their pre and probiotics, their tick-borne disease treatment. It's all natural. It's a great alternative to pharmaceuticals when used appropriately. If you expect extreme performance, you need Elite Nutrition. Available from houndsmanxp.com.
And I was so excited. I caught my first jack with a Harris hawk. I was so excited, and I rushed in there. I was ahead of Mitch, and I thought his one's on the pole looking down at mine. And God, finally, in front of witnesses, God and everybody, caught my first jack with this little Tiercel Harris hawk. I was so proud of myself. And I'm down there making in, helping him out. And Mitch comes up and starts elbowing me and down on his knees and started messing with my bird and the prey. And I said, Mitch, what are you doing? I was looking up. This is kind of annoying and irritating. I don't need the help. I got this. It's my bird. It's all good. And he said, look up on that pole to your right. Just lean up, and that's your bird, Rob.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast. And this episode is going to be the start of several that are going to come at you from Oklahoma. As some of you know, or are aware at least, I was going through Arkansas and Oklahoma in July doing a bunch of episodes, and our guest for this episode, Rob Rainey, is who helped organize a lot of that, or at least help get the most of the people lined up for this. And so big props to him for helping with that. We had discussed it back at the NAFA meet, and we're finally able to kind of make it happen. And basically, if it wasn't for his hospitality and helping host me for the weekend and getting everybody to kind of initially communicate and get together on this probably wouldn't have happened. So thanks again to him for all of this great content that's going to be coming at you from Oklahoma. And in this episode, we talk about a few different things, including another episode that was recorded that he helped kind of orchestrate and get put together. So that's going to be a doozy, though, that I'm not going to put out until later, but you'll hear it mentioned later in this episode. But in regards to Rob himself, we talk about a lot of his experiences with NAFA and, of course, the Oklahoma Falconers Association, and some of his different aspects of the falconry that he's practiced over the years, and lots of other great stuff in this episode. So once again, thanks very much to him, and of course his very kind wife for putting up with me for the weekend, as well as the rest of the Oklahoma Falconry extended family. Thank you again so much for helping make this happen. And we're just going to jump right in and kick off these bunch of episodes that are going to come at you from Oklahoma. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and start, Rob, by saying, these accommodations and everything, they've been nice. But if by the next time that I come to visit again, if you could go ahead and have a hot tub or a jacuzzi installed upstairs in that guest room, as well as the private bathroom and all that stuff and everything too,
we'll work on that.
That would just be fantastic.
You got it. We'll work on that.
I mean, the coffee machine, it's okay. It's sort of kind of up to snuff.
I told you you'd have to lower your standards to come stay here with us.
Well, I'm not going to lie. Me and Mr. Huber had a little fun at your expense to start off the conversation, too.
I hope so.
We were talking about how you really haven't done very well for yourself over the years here. And, these this house and everything. I mean, it's okay, but you should keep striving, for more and everything.
It's actually an old house, and it's my childhood home that I bought. We bought for my parents, so it has a lot of meaning to me and my wife and my children. So, and we remodeled it, of course, but it has a lot of neat memories. I had a great childhood and great parents, and really neat Leave It to Beaver type of family, at least in my perspective. And my father is gone now, and he's been gone 3 years, but he was my hero, and he took great pleasure in building this home and maintaining it back in 1968. So.
It's nice to have a place with that kind of history, especially if it's family history. And, everybody knows, of course, that, if by 170 something episodes by now they haven't been able to pick up on my whatever my second language of sarcasm, you do have a very wonderful place here, and my props to you, and thank you again very much for hosting me over this week.
Of course, it's our absolute privilege to do it, but it's nothing. I'm sorry my wife couldn't be here, but she really makes this great, and she's been very supportive of falconry and me and our children, and she's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it's very, very cool, and it's been a pleasure getting a chance to talk to you both and get to know you both a little bit better and stuff while I've been here. And it's definitely a nice little setup that you've got here. And I was really kind of impressed by your semi kind of portable Mew and stuff that you were showing me. Go ahead and talk about your Mew a little bit for people that obviously can't describe it for.
Yeah, it's I can't say I invented it or made it. I hopefully improved on some other lot better, smarter guys than me, but it is something that's been profiled during the years of COVID through some visionary leadership of our president, Sheldon Nicole at the time, decided we would not only be able to continue to have our NAFA meets virtually, but we also would do some innovative things and go see other people's muse areas, outdoor muse areas, hawk and falcon housing. And so he wanted me to present mine along with others for the benefit of the entire NAFA membership. And so he artfully did that through virtual visits, and we did that one. So the plans and specs and the full video tour of that is posted on the NAFA website under international outdoor and indoor weathering areas. So, and this is interesting because in this particular climate, in this area, we have a U3 Bermuda grass, very durable, hard grass that I have personally never found anything other than it better for keeping talons sharp and clean. So I wanted a portable muse area that was 10 by 10, about 6 foot high. It's stainless steel, and it's cage-like material on the exterior, not to keep anything in, but to keep stuff out. It's mounted on back wheels, and it has LED lighting strips in it for inciting a molt to start, getting molts ready to start. And so I use that, and it's got an automatic timer to drop food, so I don't have food associations. I've been into goshawks and accipiters for some time now, and I found that to be very useful. So if the turf gets dirty or old, needs more sun, it's got shade cloth on all sides, real dense shade cloth on the ceiling of it. And it just works really well for me. So about 2 to 3 weeks of being in a stationary position, instead of cleaning it, which I hate to clean, like most people I know, and pick up after the bird, I just move it to a new spot in the backyard. And so we start afresh. And the talons are razor sharp. It's just really neat. It's surrounded by my dogs. So you can kind of have a semi see-through area, and there's activity. So it helps reduce regression. behaviorally in the bird to have all that much activity of people around, and it's shaded. And then I have a sprinkler system that douses it during the hot August and July days of Oklahoma, central Oklahoma, which can be, and it helps with sloughing talons, sloughing beaks, and it just works for me. I'm not going to say it works in the northern province of Manitoba, or it works in deep South Florida, but it works for me, and I've tried to perfect it over the year, and it has built in, there's a hide box that hangs down with shade cloth, and so was that too much detail? Probably too little. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that was fine.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, no, like I said, obviously people can't see, what we're talking about.
Right.
So yeah, the more descriptive you can be, the better. I thought it was pretty cool. The especially the portability factor, where you can just kind of pick it up, roll it to a different spot, once it gets to whatever in the weather, or, whatever you want to do as far as clearing off that particular spot. You can just kind of, if you really wanted to, you just kind of keep moving it back and forth between a couple of spots in your yard if you want. That whole thing I thought was very clever.
Yep.
There's some portable muse setups obviously that are out there and everything, and I've never personally really seen them up close or whatever, so I can't really say one way or another how truly portable or effective any of those are. But having seen yours now up close and personal, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's a nice setup. It's a nice idea, and I mean, and I liked how on the inside you've got kind of the hidey box, and then the other perch, on the other side, and so your bird can kind of get some exercise still flying around in there and stuff. Right. A little bit too, and also get away if it doesn't want to be exposed, and it's all pretty cool.
Yeah, it works for me. I wish other falconers that I practice, I'd love to have a long flight tunnel. McElroy talks about that in his books, and get exercise. But for me, for the limitations I have here, it just works for me, and I make it work. And then when the molt's done and he's about 4 tail feathers away from being there in August, I'll probably hit it pretty hard, and then through a series of restrained pursuits, getting back in shape pretty quick and moving to them in indoor areas for temperature control and weight control.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked a little bit about that too over the last couple days. Some of your, naturally, whenever you get a group of falconers together, they're going to innately talk about some of their preferences and the way they like to do things. Sure. And all that kind of stuff. And so you are a fan more of the restrained pursuit style of, getting your bird in shape and all in conditioned and all that kind of stuff. And
yes, for launcher leashes and jumps ups, and they have their place. But for me, the quicker, faster 2-a-day method of restrained pursuits has been pretty effective for me. I'm sure there's better, quicker, faster ways to do it. I'm not smart enough to figure that out yet, but I'm working on it.
Well, and once again, we're on the topic already, kind of, sort of, so you might as well go ahead and describe how you like to do that, for yourself. Also, it works for you. Well,
it varies for everybody. Tim Jessel introduced me to this, an Oklahoma Falconer. A lot of people are familiar with him. Amazing artist and author, and barely tolerable from a personality standpoint, but an amazing man, and I consider him a good friend. And he is, I'm joking, of course, but he introduced me to it years ago, and it's basically, I can get up to 8 to 15, 35-yard, hard pumping, restrained pursuits. And it's really hard to describe in how you do it, Fist, but you want to break feathers. You don't want to break or hurt your bird, but you just want to wear him out silly. And in this heat and humidity, sometimes humidity, but mostly heat in August and September, it's pretty challenging. So you typically do it in the mornings and the evenings when it's cooler. I do it when he has a bad day in the field, and I make him work for it. and basically get them gaping, panting, heaving on your fist before it's all over, and you work up to that, and it builds muscle mass and conditioning, and it seems to work for me where I live here. Not the only way, I'm sure there's better ways, but that's worked for me so far.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's another one of those different strokes, different folks,
Sure.
type of things for everybody. Yeah, and like we were talking, I mean, I've heard of lots of different variations of that for different falconers that I've talked to and stuff, as far as just how they prefer to get their birds in shape and all that, but once again, it's the reason why, if it kind of comes up, I always like people kind of going over that in a little bit more detail, what works for them in particular with their situation, because where you're at might kind of fit the profile of where somebody else is at, or how they think or logically do things or whatever. So there's never it's usually never too much of a bad thing if people have other people kind of suggest ways to do different stuff. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, as far as I mean, how does life in general work for you? With you do, you're a lawyer, correct? You do law, you're an attorney.
Yes, but please don't tell anyone.
Well, how do you fit? The only reason I usually ask what people do and stuff is, I always like knowing or finding out how people fit falconry into their lifestyle, because different people find different ways to make it work, whether they have a 9-to-5 or if they have a more flexible career or whatever the case is. So, I mean, over the years and, up till now, I mean, how have you managed to fit all this into your life?
Well, one thing I should share with you is the comment about lawyers, please don't tell anyone. I grew up in a family. My father was my hero. He had 5 kids and married, and pretty tight nuclear family growing up. And he would always share horror stories. Every bad lawyer joke I heard first from my father, because he hated them. Just hated lawyers. And then one of his 5 children became one. And it was and then he married one, and my wife's a lawyer as well, and he thought that was a crime against nature, that we just make more lawyers, and he just hated them. And then I became one, but I think he had a grudging respect for him. But so that's why I say, it's like, okay, we're akin to the oldest profession in the world, or right below a used car salesman in terms of things. But I happen to be passionate about it. I love it. I love it almost as much as falconry. I just can't imagine doing anything else. That's all I've ever done. I enjoy it. And we have a broad general civil business practice, and there are things from wills, estates, and trusts, and it's a pretty variety and a fair amount of litigation. So it's a pretty varied practice, and I like that. But it also can be demanding. So you have these daily disciplines that we're all familiar with as falconry. And so you have to plan, or I have to plan. And I'm not, I don't claim to be a very intuitively good falconer. I never claim to be that, because I'm not. I have some really good friends. One, you're going to interview Mitch Wishon, who's probably one of the most intuitive falconers I've ever met. I have more than one embarrassing stories about how he's corrected me on some really stupid stuff I was doing, and it's just embarrassing. And I've known him since he was 8 years old, and I've always kind of admired that for him. But I have to think about it, I have to read about it, I have to plan, I have to prepare. That's just me. I'm not smart enough to be intuitively good. And so I love reading, I love listening to other people and learning how to do things better, that I've gotten accustomed to doing, that I didn't realize, that's really not a great way to do that. You ought to consider this. So that's always fascinated me. I love learning. So preparing is, to answer your question, is I, and I'm sure everybody's familiar with this, but I want to see what the weather's going to do. I want to, and it's in your pocket now. So I start with that. I start with schedule, start with hearing, start with, okay, how can I sneak in hunting today, and when can I do that, and how can I do my schedule? And as your kids would tell you, I've made way too many sacrifices okay, am I going to miss a family dinner together? Am I going to miss a family event if I do this? How could I sneak that in? Maybe I could taper off weight here and do that. And so just looking ahead, and some of the best ultra runners, marathon, man, they're serious about it, and diet, weight, balance, everything. They're planned. Okay, how can I get that 26-mile run in? Or how can I get that 2.5 hour flight time in if I've got kids and family and work? And so just planning. Not very good at, but I try. So,
well, and I imagine since you got into all this at such an early age, you obviously have become very passionate, or were very passionate early on about your career choice and everything. But were there ever any doubts, or were there ever any kind of like reservations about possibly going into that career path because of how it might potentially interfere with the other passion and falconry that you already had? Or, there's a lot of time demands in a career like this. You know,
it can. It's certainly a lifestyle in many ways, and most new neophytes to the sport just don't understand that, and they get a handle on it. They're either going to handle on it or they don't, and they figure it out pretty quick. And I think that has a lot to do with being a good sponsor, is raising or lowering expectations to someone new coming into the sport. But I knew early on I wanted to be a lawyer, and I wanted to go in that profession, but I knew there'd be sacrifice to make. Like, I didn't do a lot of falconry when I was in law school because it's so demanding, and even in undergrad. But I knew I always wanted to go full in once I had a stable schedule. And but I tried pretty hard since I was 8 years old to try to figure it out. And this is all, of course, pre-internet. And you had to go to your local library or order private books, and there weren't a lot. And everybody knows that story. That's kind of an old trope, but it's true. It's just not a lot of resources. Now it's amazing what's you can find out there. So in many ways, it's a lot easier. It's also a lot more challenging because to try to divine truth from fiction in your pocket to figure out that. So that's pretty challenging for other generations. It's still challenging. It's just a different set of challenges. So I really didn't consider how demanding it was when I took this on as a profession. But since we have our own firm and have for almost a quarter century now, I have more choices because I have more involvement. It's not that I spend less time in it. It's just I can self-direct more, which is when you're leading a team, it just makes it easier.
Yeah, a little bit more control over your own destiny, so to speak, and you can kind of mold and adapt schedules a little bit more whenever it's your practice.
Right.
I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I guess as far as the early days, you said 9 years old. Roughly, right?
About 8, yeah.
8, 9 years
that.
old.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you were that young, how did you discover all of this then and get interested in it?
Yeah, the origin story of mine is not that fascinating. It's not that remarkable, but it's essentially Gene Craighead Moore wrote a series of books, and of course Walt Disney made a movie in and around that time called My Side of the Mountain. And I'm not the first guy to ever raise that, and I know that's kind of a well-worn thing. Yeah, there's lots of people, but that really made my antenna go up. I didn't even know it was a thing. I didn't even know you could do that. And so I got my very supportive parents, mother in particular, that made sure I had access to every resource I could possibly get a hold of, driving me into the local library, into town. We lived in the country, and it was really eye-opening because, one, I'd read pretty much anything you could get a hold of by then, and during that process, and I think I was sharing with you the story. The first raptor I ever took was along with my friend at the time, and still is, a guy by the name of Mitch Wishon that grew up in this area. And at the time he lived less than a mile from here and on a farm. And we harvested 2 barred owls that were pretty advanced downies, about 50 foot from my house, 75 feet from the house, back down in the creek behind me. And we raised them. We had no idea what we were doing. We were completely stupid. We fed them dog food because we didn't know any better. And they're so durable and they're so hardy, and they imprinted to us, and they flew all around this area, and we just had the best time with them. And we learned a lot, and they hung around afterwards. And more pet, like we didn't do any attempt falconry, didn't even know what that was about much. So that's how I got started, basically. And I'm very blessed and fortunate to have somebody that's equally passionate and twice as talented as me to learn falconry and do falconry together. We've done it, and now we're in our mid-60s, and we still enjoy it together, and we try to get together whenever we can to do it during falconry season.
Yeah, it's kind of rare, really. I mean, you don't hear that very often, having a childhood friend and, kind of growing up in that same kind of world with the same thing and sticking together in that way for that long. It's kind of rare. It's pretty cool.
Well, it's good to know. I didn't know that, but it feels pretty normal for me because we had it, and I probably underappreciate it, but people make fun of us all the time. It's like, okay, if they're hanging around us, it seems like it's the grumpy old man movie times 10. We're giving each other grief all the time. And
I think any good falconry friendship / hunting group camaraderie involved, there's never any real true support. It's always just constant, like it's nagging, haggling, just more or less just. Well, yeah, you're not going to get very many attaboys and whatever. It's literally waiting for the other person to screw up and then annihilate them for
total grief all the time. Yeah, and it's all great.
It is. It's what kind of makes the world go around for us in that way. So, yeah, I mean, it would be hard to imagine. I would almost worry in a way if during an outing, if all of a sudden everybody just became really supportive and very nice, like, oh my God, that was so cool. Oh man, like it just all of a sudden just being super, like all of a sudden just supportive, and I would wonder if I was either A, dreaming, or B, woke up in an alternate dimension probably. But anyway, it really is rare though. I mean, you don't hear that very sure. You hear plenty of times where people get together and meet up after the fact and hawk together for years and everything, but not necessarily from childhood though. That's definitely something you don't hear very often.
That's good to know. I didn't know that. I just thought it was a common dynamic. But now I think about it, I haven't had a lot of that, but I'm sure it exists.
Yeah, it exists. It's just it's not very common, sure. I think. But, and so then where did things evolve from there? I mean, you had these dealings with, these owls or whatever. And I mean, what happened kind of after that got you kind of on the more, I won't say proper, but, the more, I guess, technically the right falconry path as far as, the next steps as far as how you learned and progressed from there?
Well, we live in an area that red tails are common. Red tail hawks, extraordinarily common and highly prevalent, especially during certain times of the year, in the fall and the winter migration. And we have some local experts like Jim Lish, who's an amazing writer and very skilled in red tails. So red tails are, you hunt what you have, and we have red tails. And so there was a natural outgrowth. At the time, which was interesting, I'm old enough to remember this, is red tails, according to North American Hunting and Falconry Hawks, was a buzzard and not suitable, according to Webster and Beebe, that not suitable for falconry. which is remarkable. And I remember I was overseas in school. Fast forward, I was overseas in school, and I attend I think it was the Falconry Conservancy, probably butchering the name. Ashley Smith was the owner, he and his son, and they had all manner of birds from all over the world in South England, and I was attending Oxford at the time, and I was just shocked. The birds they were most proud of, and this is in the 80s, were a female and a male red-tailed hawk sitting on a pillar at the front. They were the most proud. They had gerfalcons, they had peregrines, and they were so proud of it. And I was thinking, whoa, that's a big change from what I learned when I was 8 or 9 about red-tailed hawks. They're buzzards, they're trash birds, they're not used to it. So that was an interesting dynamic to see. Oh yeah, we love them here. They're versatile, they're durable, they're strong, they're highly trainable, and so it was a shock to me to realize, wow, I land in Oklahoma City International Airport and there's red tails everywhere. We take them for granted, and people love these birds, and it helped me gain a new appreciation. So we migrated into those, and Cooper's hawks, and of course Harris hawks for us came along later, and I've flown those. I'm sure there's a lot of birds I haven't flown, but it seems like I've flown my fair share of a different variety. But I've really, over the years, really migrated into and love for where I live. I like hunting accipiters. I love goshawks and Finnish goshawks, and I'm flying a male imprint, tame hacked, and it's just really, that works for me because it's so versatile. It's from crows to ducks to quail to quail. We're in a down cycle in quail populations here, rabbit, all manner of game. We like to hunt with them.
Cool. Well, and you briefly mentioned like Oxford. I mean, what were you doing? You know, were you over there for a prolonged period of time, or just a quick?
No,
these were
the law school I was attending has a summer program.
Okay.
In Oxford, England, and then at Queen's College. And I, believe it or not, that's where I met my vertically challenged Cuban wife. She was in the same program. And that's where we met, actually. And it was a tremendous, wonderful experience to get exposed to that kind of an educational culture and learn there. And, of course, falconry, for good or bad, is all over the map from a regulatory standpoint over there, because there's essentially not much, if any, regulation. And so, but that's that old world falconry thing, and so it has that mystique. And I wanted to visit and learn as much as I could when breaks from school happened, and so that's why I wound up down in Ware Hill at this conservancy and learned about, wow, we don't really appreciate red tails like we should.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure you've heard me and others talk about it multiple times, either, on this podcast or just in passing, but it really is kind of funny how we've come to take for granted, that particular species. It really is, because, like they're, as you said, I mean, lots of other countries would kill to have ready access to that particular bird. And we're just kind of like, eh. Yep. But, if they were as hard to get as goshawks or other species or whatever, everybody would want to fly them all the time.
Exactly. We have them all around us, and it was like, you take them for granted. But yeah, we don't have any nesting goshawks in Oklahoma, unfortunately. It's pretty hot. So they're not native to this area.
Yeah. Well, just like I said, it's whenever you don't have ready access to things like that, it's always, once again, going back to that whole lusting over what you don't have is readily. But so I mean, how many years total then were you in practice, or going to school for law and
Well, it's a 3-year program typically, unless you tag on extra degrees, and that's postgrad of undergrad of 4 years typically, depending on where you're at.
Gotcha. So there was probably somewhere between like a 4 to 7 year window where you weren't really doing falconry all that much then because of just, the demands of...
I did it with others wherever I could, but having a bird, being overseas, doing this, doing that, it's pretty challenging. It was for me. Many people do it all the time, do it very well. I just knew that I had certain limitations, and I had to go all in on school and get that behind me because that's what is required in the United States.
Sure, and that's completely understandable. I didn't know if you went pretty much like right back into it as soon as you passed all your exams, graduated, all that kind of stuff. Did you go immediately back into it?
Oh yeah, I went all in, just like that was my plan. So, and fortunately, I had a very supportive spouse that encouraged that, and she was great then. She's great now. I'm very blessed to have that.
And about how many were you still in school, or did you wait until you both were graduated and in your career part of everything before you officially got married and everything, or did you guys get married in the middle of school?
We finished school and then got married.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
She was ahead of me. She was out of school and in a job already, and then I graduated. But when we got married, she said, "You bet, let's do it." And so trapped my first red tail after school, and got right back into it, and it's been great ever since.
Point being is you had some time to kind of slowly desensitize her, as to what she was going to have to live with, during.
Yeah, she knew that was a what we call a deal point. that was at least important for me, But we all make accommodations. We make it work. Every couple has their own dance, and they figure it out or they don't. And we're no exception to that.
Sure, I can only imagine. Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's always compromise in every aspect of life, for sure. But that's cool that she was willing to kind of readily accept that and knew that was going to be something that you were going to pick back up and everything, and it wasn't an issue.
For you. No, it was never a problem. As recently as the last NAFA meet in Kansas, she went out and with my apprentice at the time, and we did falconry together and caught quail and caught a jackrabbit, and she got to be there for some of that and attend the meet, and she's just really supportive, loves the people, loves the social aspect of it, thinks correctly that we're all crazy, and she enjoys that.
Well, she does seem like a very intuitive person, mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm sure it probably didn't take very long for her to pick up on the fact that we're all just, have some kind of mental deficiency in some way, to want to have to constantly deal with these creatures that will never like us back, but yet, yeah.
That's Carolyn.
Yeah. Carolyn. Well, that's cool. And so I guess, you pretty much then have stuck, you said you more or less stuck with accipiters. I know you mentioned, just in other conversations that we've had so far over the past couple of days that you're maybe kind of sort of maybe getting the red-tailed hawk itch again a little bit, maybe.
No, for me, probably not. Other falconers, Rob Hubert does an amazing job. Mm-hmm. I enjoy more helping apprentices or others get that red tail experience. I value it. It's invaluable. But for our prey base here and what I like doing with our vizslas and, dogs and birds, it's just, I really like accipiters. I like the third hawking, if you will. I like the activity of not driving for an hour to get a 8 to 10 minute flight. I just like getting out and working the dogs and working the field and working the bird. That to me, that's appealing. I'm not saying the other falconry is bad or anything. It's just, that's not what I want to do right now. And as we all age, we get a little bit more particular, and I find I'm no exception to that.
Sure. Well, and now that you mention it, yeah, I think that's what the conversation was as we were talking on the way to dinner last night about the, kind of the thrill of seeing, apprentices
Right.
and stuff, trap their first bird and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, no. So basically, just the one accipiter, then the one goshawk is kind of more than enough for you and your plate.
With the day job, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm full-time engaged. I'd do it injustice if I had another bird right now. And that's from the distant past. That's all I've ever tried to do. It's too stressful.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, I just don't have enough daylight. I need to get the second bird flown, or a third bird, or a fourth bird. Maybe at some point in time in the future that might change. But I think Mike McDermott talks a lot about it. I think I got that accurate. Someone I have a high regard for, and he's like, when you're gainfully employed, you are wholly lacking in a superpower. And the superpower is retirement.
Yeah.
And you can go places you'd never went before. You can go for longer you can do different things. And do I miss that? I can't say I miss it, but is that something I might look forward to? Sure. Yeah, having a superpower. But right now I just kind of enjoy this mix.
Yeah, the superpower ultimately is just time. Yeah, in general, especially when it comes to accipiters. I mean, there's nothing that can substitute time.
Yeah, it's pretty consumptive.
Yeah, and that's why. Yeah, I remember having the conversation with him and in our episode.
Mm-hmm.
He mentioned the people that usually succeed if they hadn't before for the first time with say your Cooper socks and stuff like that. It's the people that are usually the older retired guys, and stuff that can dedicate the extra time and just to meet that particular species needs, because they are unique needs. And so I mean, I trust me, I completely sympathize with the whole time thing, and I usually try my best also to have just one falconry bird also, just because I feel like if I have more than one, the other one kind of suffers and stuff. And it's it's just nice to know what your limits are, so I mean it's good that you're in tune with that. But I do want to talk about vizslas a little bit though, because I mean we both have them and have had vizslas for a good while now, and especially whenever I talk, have these conversations with other falconers that have the same species, the same breeds that I do, whether it's dachshunds or vizslas or whatever. I kind of like talking shop about that a little bit and finding out what it is about the particular breed that appealed to you. So I know what appeals and doesn't appeal to me about the breeds that I have, but I mean, what attracted you initially to vizslas? Like, why did you end up with that breed?
Their versatility. I think Marion Kaufman wrote a book called The Versatile Vizsla.
I have it.
Yeah, I've got it too. And it's a pretty interesting, high-level executive overview kind of book. But they're highly biddable by training by nature. They're gregarious, imprint well. They can run large. They can run small. They're great inside. They're great outside. My friend Mitch Wishon tells me that he's worthless in the water, and he kind of is. But I'm trying to the one I have right now. But we got a vizsla pup for my daughter and her husband for their wedding present, and that dog since he was 8 years old, we couldn't keep him out of the pool. I mean, he would just jump. No, but we had to watch him constantly. He just wanted to be in the water. Mine, at that age, was completely in fear of anything wet. So it's totally two different dogs. It happens. Anyway, so I've gotten 3. He's on his 3rd year now. The one I have now that replaced my old standby that was one of the best falconry dogs I ever had. He had progressive retinal atrophy at about his 6th, 7th year, and I didn't know it. It's a genetic anomaly, and he's completely blind in the backyard and retired, and you've met him and you've seen him, and he's a big vizsla, and I didn't know he was going to be that big, but he did okay in the water too, so I've not great, but my friend Mitch, he has a poodle pointer, and that thing we can't keep out of the water. It's just ridiculous. And she's a strong swimmer, and so he kind of rubs that in every time we go out, tries to make me feel like my dog's worthless, which he probably is, but that's just the nature of it. And so to answer your question, I love that. Again, as we age, they've documented this, we all get more particular. Very particular, if not peculiar, and I'm no exception. So I probably won't unless I live somewhere other than here and I have no plans to. It works for me. So duck fleshes, rabbit, quail, points. It just works. The cover's appropriate for the kind of dogs. I know there's better dogs. Everybody has an opinion about their dog. It's the best dog in the world. Blah blah blah, and I get that. But that works for me. That works for us. And so was that responsive to your question?
Yeah. And I know for me, that's the original reason why I chose that breed also.
Oh, good.
However, I made the choice, and I've mentioned this before, but I mean, I've made the choice whenever I was very early, like very beginning of my falconry career, and didn't have the kind of foresight to really know that, while it's one of the best all around, I think, breeds for this, because that's the reason why the breed was initially made, initially bred for falconry. It still doesn't mean that it's going to be good for every area. And while do have places that I can hunt her and not think about it that much, they're dwindling. And I didn't have the foresight to really know that she wasn't going to be the best choice for a lot of the fields that we have access to. And so that being said, I still love mine to death, but I know mine can be a little bit more, or at least early on, there's some neuroticism with the breed that I personally haven't been a fan of over the years.
I've seen that from time to time.
And it's not anything that wasn't workable or overcome, but overcomable, if that's even a word. Or it's you can work around those kind of things, but like I said, there's certain things about them, though. I mean, I love, like you said, the biddable aspect. They're easily trainable. Always want to be around you, which also can be a kind of a curse.
Can be annoying.
Yeah. Because the one thing that's always annoying about mine is that they always just want you. They always want you touching them, and I didn't like, at least with mine, kind of the separation anxiety that happens sometimes too. I don't know if you ever had issues with yours in that regard, but
I really haven't. That's been problematic. Okay, will he bark if he's left alone? The other dogs are out. And I'm going to feel, okay, well, there's a lot of breeds that do that, but if that's separation anxiety, but I haven't had him tear up stuff and in a passive aggressive manner, but I'm pretty disciplined with getting him out every day. I mean, they're not apartment dogs, never have. They're athletes, and you need to run them if you want them happy, and engaged. That's my view of it, and so that's what I try to do. That's what I've always tried to do, and it's if I'm feeling particularly lazy or sluggish, I just look over and I see those pair of eyes looking at me, and it's like, why are we not going out? And so it's motivation too, it's okay, I need to take him out. So let's go. And even if it's in the middle of the summer when you're not finding a bird, he's heavy in the molt. So that's what I try to be disciplined about.
Yeah. And mine, she's still really energetic, even being like 10 years old now and having the white face and all that kind of stuff. I still try and exercise all of my dogs, although usually after about 15 minutes they're just done in this kind of heat. Tough. Even getting them out super early in the morning, but it's sometimes it's tough, but yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I would never discourage anybody from getting the breed unless they are just in the middle of a city or something like that,
Yeah, if you live in an apartment or you're flying a Kestrel or something, that's not a good idea in my view. Although I have found they're if you're willing to do it, and one of the ways I've introduced in a good old dog trainer, a couple of them always taught me this, is get them good and hot and worn out and panting. And so I can take this one out for couple of hours in 100-degree weather and with some intermittent ponds on the way, and it's like, oh, swimming's pretty fun. I'm not afraid of the water anymore. I want to get in there and swim around and cool off. So that's a helpful dynamic too, and it makes them more durable for us in the fall and more heat resistant. 40 years ago, I lost a dog, not a vizsla, but to heat stroke, and had babied him too much in the field before we'd taken out our birds. And I think we were flying Casta Harris's at the time, and it was only 80 degrees out, and it was September, and just couldn't get him out of the field in time, and he passed away, right? Because of heat stroke. And I didn't know it. I didn't know how to recognize it. I said, man, what's wrong? Maybe he's having heart problems. I didn't know. And he had a heavy coat, and it was a golden retriever, which was completely useless in the field, but it was a great family dog for my 3 young children at the time. And I was like, well, that's embarrassing that I did not know how to recognize heat stroke in a dog, because I'd never been exposed to it before. But had I just rushed him to the local pond and cooled him off and put him in shade, he'd probably been fine, but maybe just as well. Because he was worthless falconry dog.
Yeah, well, it's once again though, it's better to have a learning experience in a situation like that, as terrible as it might sound. I mean, as opposed to a dog that really would have been 100% useful and very integral part of your team and stuff. But that's cool. I mean, like I said, I'm glad that it's worked out. I'm glad that it's worked out for you as far as the breed goes, and you've developed an affinity for him, and like I said, I don't know if I'll ever own another one as long as I continue to live where I'm living now. But if I lived out west or in different areas, I would not hesitate to have another one again for sure.
Yeah, I think of a great example of a bird situation where in northwest Oklahoma, and this is remarkable. I haven't seen this in years and years and years, but we went to a particular place that another falconer put us on, and he strongly recommended we bring our birds up there and try it out. And he had no idea the limitations we had, but we were literally seeing 30 coveys, good coveys of bobwhite quail a day. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I've never flown anything like that. And it's pretty challenging terrain because it's sandy, very sandy, loamy soils in northwest Oklahoma in this particular spot. And the mesquite grows so tight together. Not the mesquite, the plum thickets, Plum thickets were growing super, super tight because in their sandy loam soils, they're required to do that just to survive. So you can't even stick your fist in between these thickets, and some of them are 150 yards wide and long, and they're thick. Well, these are escape hatches for the bobwhite, and no vizsla that I've ever known can even get through that. You can't even stick your fist in there, and it's challenging conditions because there's goat heads everywhere that are sticky, and you have to put rubber boots on your dog, and otherwise they're in agony. But there's quail everywhere, and it was like, man, we had 2 finished goshawks there for 3 days, caught 1 quail, seeing average of 30 coveys a day. Well, it's a new area. The birds are not used to it. They're making into the escape hatches. And I thought, wow, okay, this would be a gun hunter's paradise. And it was. But for falconry, this is challenging. I'd have to spend a week or 2 and dial this in and figure it out and have the bird figured out. Man, he's got to make in quick on a covey rise, or it's just not going to happen. So maybe there's a dog out there that would go into that situation and make that happen. I just never seen one. I don't know if a dachshund could weave through that, but I mean, it's when you can't even put your fist in those things, and you sure can't walk in them. And if your bird goes down in there, it's very challenging to get them out after a quail because they were just bailing in these things. So I guess if I'd probably change my view if I lived somewhere different that had different topography. But right here, in flying on a daily basis, you want to do that. You want to have a dog that's pretty versatile, and that works for me.
Yeah, that makes complete and total sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, I guess then, since we've talked about that now, before we kind of move towards the latter end of the conversation, you're another one of these guys, of course, that's served in roles and if people get tired of listening to these parts of these episodes, well, I mean, I guess there's always a fast forward button, but I don't really care. I once again, I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. I like talking to people about their experiences, serving in any kind of role, and whether it's in, their state club, NAFA, whatever the situation is, and, kind of what their experiences are, because, people need to keep carrying the torch, so to speak, and serving in these capacities and everything. So, I mean, what have your experiences been in some of these different roles for these organizations, and what's that been like for you?
Well, it's something I've always been fascinated about and interested in. I grew up in a managerial family. My father was a hero, was a Fortune 200 CEO in a number of different companies and roles, and sat on boards. And he always also told us to contribute and get back wherever we can, follow our talents, develop them, always try to be better. And so that came pretty naturally to me. Sitting around this table right here was where we had these dinner conversations every night about his world travels, and his experience was about and with people and resources and trying to get them oriented to a particular goal. So organizational development and leadership has always kind of fascinated me because it started early with my family. So I've served on a number of state, local, national, international boards and organizations over the years, and I found it generally to be pretty rewarding. And I've always been fascinated in particular by like the Oklahoma Falconers Association, which I've been an officer and board member of, and also the North American Falconers Association, which, having recently a couple of years ago returned from Saudi Arabia, realized how much a group of volunteers, men and women, contributing to NAFA really punches above its own weight. I mean, we don't have a huge budget, never have, probably never will, don't have paid staff, probably never will in my lifetime, is so highly regarded overseas for our models of both regulatory schemes and organizational development. That's fascinating me. It probably bores other falconers to death, but it's fascinating me because I know without that, we'll always be susceptible to the vagaries of regulation and statute change, which might include but not be limited to losing falconry altogether. It's happened, and you've personally seen it and heard about it and experienced in your African experience in South Africa, and we've shared a few stories about that. So I've always believed in the idea that the price of freedom is diligence, and diligence means caring, reading, listening, being a good hard listener, and see how can I make this better for the next generation. That was something's taught to me. I fail miserably at it, but I try. And so I would say my experience have been generally rewarding. I've learned a lot, and I have so much more to learn. The more I know, the more I realize I don't know. And I think that keeps us all humble, and that having that doubt and wanting to learn more, that's helpful to me.
Well, and would you mind kind of going a little bit into, I mean, the folks that are listening to this or will listen to this that are NAFA members, and once again, I've also kind of tried to work out some different ways that I can help NAFA with some increased degrees of like transparency and stuff to members and everything like that. But for those though that still are kind of wondering some of the different changes that have happened, and some of the I don't know, with the process and the way things are done, and how the cogs in the wheel keep turning, so to speak, and possibly even more efficiently and everything. Now, we've already had some conversations over the past couple of days, and you've made me aware of things that I didn't even know about, and I've got plenty of friends that serve on the board and in other capacities and roles and things, but I thought it was interesting to hear about the contributions that you've helped or make or have tried to help make, and like taking some of the roles and responsibilities off of say like the plate of like the president, and having more efficient ways to get things done, to help serve our members and things like that. I mean, would you care to expound on a couple of the process?
Well, sure. And I want to be sensitive to and not necessarily name people or personalities, but I found it to be a generally positive experience. First of all, every falconer, I've never met an ill-willed falconer. I've met plenty of stupid falconers like me. I consider myself to be part of that class. But I've never met anyone. I just believe in the good, and I think all falconers, no matter what their personality, are just fascinating. Right? From welders and tradesmen to lawyers and doctors and architects and accountants, and we just got them all. And I just think that is the coolest thing about falconry. Our group is so varied in terms of profession and passions and interests, and it kind of broke my heart to see NAFA leadership, because I really got involved in NAFA leadership beginning in the very early 90s. And to see that when I could free up some more time, and I was asked to come in by the board and help them. And we helped create the first ever third-party facilitated strategic planning session. And people don't, well, what is that? Well, it's like figuring out what we want to be and what we want to do over the next 5 to 10 years, and how can we better serve our membership. So first ever occurred in Woodward, Oklahoma, and I got to be a small part of that. And we brought in a facilitator that really helped us get the board focused. And it was really a time of great dissension and disharmony in the organization, and it was very, very challenging for a lot of people, and a lot of people's feelings were hurt, and it's just really tough. And to be able to help address that and bring it forward, have a very small part in that, was really neat and meaningful. And the latest term I served as director of at large, we were able, over a 2-year period, I helped lead an effort to totally reconstitute the corporate governance system of NAFA with the assent and agreement of the board and its officers. And that was challenging. And so when it just broke my heart when you interview the vast majority of former presidents of NAFA, and you hear they've had either spousal issues and or lost their job because they were all in on NAFA business, all in on serving over approximately 2,000 members in 3 countries, Canada, United States, and Mexico. I mean, it's a challenging volunteer, unpaid job. And they are passionate about falconry. They all did their crummiest best to do the best they could. But to lose a family or lose a job, that'll get your attention real quick. So we changed the corporate model, and I'm very proud of NAFA for doing this, to go to a more traditional model where we have a board chair, a chair that rides herd over 10 people, and doesn't bother the president with board issues, and helps keep the board trained, focused, educated onboarded from year to year to year, and then institute term limits. So we don't have people that are your friends that don't show up to meetings, don't read anything, don't listen, and just are placeholders. And I'm not saying that was common, but it was a dynamic, and in a dynamic in every organization. You all have them. And so there's no mechanism to up and out those placeholders and let newer blood, younger blood, fresher perspectives come in. And that feeds an organization and it keeps it vibrant and alive. So we want to keep it vibrant and alive for the next 70 years. And so very small part in that, but that was something that I'm particularly proud of NAFA for adopting. Is it perfect? Does it work exactly well? It's a group of volunteers, for crying out loud. It's never going to be perfect, but it's pretty enlightening to see that. And I think that will help preserve a legacy for falconry in North America. I really do. I believe in it. I believe in passionately the NAFA mission, and that's why I insist every apprentice that I sponsor has to belong to both the Oklahoma Falconers Association and North American Falconers. I require that. I won't even consider it if you're not a member, because it's a great opportunity to learn. There are a lot of great gals in this. And we haven't mentioned gals. I have 3 daughters. I couldn't buy a boy. I just love to see the dynamic. You mentioned earlier about grief, how we give each other grief as falconers, and there's not a lovey-dovey supportive group. But I will tell you that it has been a great dynamic to have women falconers, like Lauren McGow, who I sponsored when she was 14. A great eagle falconer, a wonderful lady, a neat person, very talented, incredibly smart, horribly introverted when you get down to it, but just gets all past that and just an amazing, talented person. Well, to see that dynamic grow where we have a lot more female falconers, they are different, and they're more supportive in some ways. They can be harder in other ways, but they're just in a great and wonderful and different perspective to falconry, and I think it'll help preserve falconry's future.
Yeah, I mean, the more different perspectives you can bring to the table, the better. And in some ways, I mean, in the right situations and the right circumstances, it really helps to consider all angles, on some things for sure.
Yeah,
it's not always helpful whenever you have to make a final decision sometimes to have a ton of stuff, but sometimes it can, there's certain things that sometimes can muddy the water a little bit, but overall I would say 9 times out of 10, it's really nice to have a whole lot of different input and perspectives to get from point A to point B on certain things.
I agree. In so long as you have strong leadership that puts control, you don't want to show up at a meeting or a board meeting or an annual membership meeting, and you're all over the map, and you're there 4 hours later and you haven't gotten a dang thing done, and no decisions have been made, and everybody's been heard and listened. That's great, but people won't be coming back to that meeting.
Yeah.
It's like showing up to a board, there's that is no fun. And we didn't do anything, and we didn't get anything done. Well, most people like to be productive and effective, not just efficient, but effective. So making sure that you have strong leadership that puts boundaries and controls that are consensual, that say, okay, we're going to have a discussion about topic X, and we're going to limit that to 15 minutes. And we're going to let everybody go around the table. And if you go longer than 2 to 5 minutes, we're going to have to go to the next person. And then if we have enough time, we'll come back to you. But those kind of organizational controls and development is really help bring organizations together. I personally think that with that leadership, a female perspective in falconry is pretty invaluable. And I have 3 daughters, so I had some very humbling experiences early on. I grew up with brothers and a tomboy sister. There were 5 of us. So it's okay, being attentive listeners and at the same time getting stuff done, that there's a healthy or unhealthy tension there. And so if there's a balance met, it can really be amazing, because they have so much to contribute. Unfortunately, not one of my girls ever took on or became seriously interested in falconry, but they've gone out with me and they enjoy it. They know their dad enjoys it, and they've been very supportive of me, and mostly by making fun of me about bad dad jokes, and that's fine. And so, I suffered through that. But some people like you'll be interviewing, like, and have interviewed, like Lauren McGow or Brooke Reed, or our current president, Sam Grayson. These are awesome little potential and actual falconers, and they do things different. They think things different. There's an old, and this is proven out, guys think about and love things. Women think about people and relationships and discussions, and it's just a genetic thing. And it's a total stereotype, but I've seen that proven out in truth. And my own wife will humble me when I have blindsides about bull and china shop type things and go, there's another perspective to this. And I was, oh crap, I hadn't thought of that. And it makes me better, and I'm okay with that. Not everybody can take that kind of criticism. I don't know if I can say I love it every time, but it helps me be better.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's just part of growing as a person, so,
yeah.
But yeah, no, well, that's cool. And thanks for being willing to, to share that. I'm like, I could tell that in some of our conversations that we've had over the past couple of days that, that was a very important part of your contribution, or personal contribution to kind of, these different, organizations and stuff, and especially NAFA, offering kind of that different, organizational kind of methodology, so to speak, and how things operate and stuff. So I figured it would be cool to have you share that. So,
well, that's very kind of you. I am passionate about it. I grew up in it. And I should say more of my attempted contributions, because to really make long-term systemic change, you need years in a role. And maybe someday that might include me being more involved again. And I would love that, nothing more. But I want to be effective, not just efficient. You can be efficient all day long, but if you're not effective, if people are not welcoming you there and you don't want to be there, they don't want you there, that's, it's like, well, I got to move on. I get to where people want me to be and believe that I'm being effective. And so those are always hard decisions, and I'm totally fine with it. It's I just want to be effective and efficient where I can.
Well, and that's great. Hopefully, and that's the reason why I always like broaching this topic, in these conversations for people that I know that have served in different roles and stuff, because I want people to hear some of these, and there's going to be plenty of people that probably are just kind of like, whatever. But even if the right handful of people will listen to some of these and be like, well, I'd really like to contribute to that also, then I feel like I've kind of done my job in that from that perspective of things, or point of view, so
people are attracted and want to work with and contribute to organizations that know who they are, what their goals are. And they're attracted to, especially in volunteer not-for-profits, where the people that are involved are known and respected and are good listeners and want to achieve things. And that's been my experience across all trade organizations, not-for-profits, and so forth. To me, NAFA is particularly important because it has the potential to be so much more. It's punched well above its weight for approximately 7 decades. So it can do more, but it's done a lot. So I always encourage these younger falconers to get involved, be involved, because it's your future long after I'm dead and gone. I mean, if you don't lay the groundwork now, like, I'm very proud of our local commitment here. I have not seen many states that have better relationships with their local wildlife officials and officers, and we've worked hard to protect and preserve that. And my own opinion is, in the early 60s on, I think we were way over-regulated by the feds. And I attribute that to a lot of factors, having studied it and being aware of it. And I would hate to see us return to that level of mistrust from regulators. I think we have to be open, honest, and transparent. And when they asked us to step up and serve and educate and impact on regulations, we've got to be there. And if you speak in form of in the form of a representative of a highly respected group of falconers like NAFA or like Oklahoma Falconers Association, you can just be much more effective.
Yeah, because we're such a small drop in the overall bucket.
We are.
Yeah.
We are outmoneyed. We are outmaneuvered. We are outlobbied by a lot of other worthy, good organizations, but they're not. They're bigger than we are, and we're such a small niche group. But when we generally walk into a room, it's like, oh, those guys, they're falconers. Oh, they're conservationists. They listen. They care deeply about preserving the legacy of the sport, and that carries over to overseas. I didn't realize how much the Saudis held North American Falconry Association in such high esteem. It was surprising to me. And the exhibits they have at this falconry center outside of Riyadh there's a whole exhibit dedicated to North American falconry and our origins and what we went. And I'd never been exposed to that. And it was, wow, that's cool. So NAFA sent me over there with a bunch of pamphlets, and I handed them out during the speech that I gave and the people that I met, because I wanted to encourage their participation in North American falconry. And they're always looking to connect with Western cultures and societies, particularly the United States. That was my impression.
Well, very cool. Well, thanks for sharing all. I think that's a good note to end on as far as that end of things and your contribution, with all of that. And I mean, I guess we're down to the final stages of getting a couple of good stories or one particular good, memorable hunting story or experience with a bird and your piece of advice, and we can call your episode good, my friend.
I don't know if I have any memorable
yes, you do.
stories.
You knew this was coming, dude.
I did, because I've listened, not all of them, but most of them, the vast majority of them, and enjoyed them all. And before we close, let me also thank you personally for the many hours and the editing that you have to put in on this. I didn't realize until you'd shared it with me earlier about every interview, the amount of time to professionally and appropriately edit these things to make them compelling and listen friendly, I should say, because I've enjoyed that. And so thank you for doing that. And the mileage and the gas and the expenses, this, as we've discussed, is not an especially high paid job for you, as we all know, we all chuckle about. But, and driving down to visit with Dr. Ken Riddle was a big deal to me and other falconers here, because he's in many ways, perceived as the father of Oklahoma falconry, and he's a wonderful man, generous, thoughtful, kind, and always willing to lend a hand, and been very helpful, and consider him to be a good friend. And I think he's 84 now, 85, and getting up there and still willing to sit down with you. But you had to drive all the way from your hometown in southern Indiana to go get that done and then travel here. So thank you. I hope people go out of their way to thank you, because I know it can be an unappreciated thing that you're doing, but thank you. That helps preserve a legacy for us.
Well, you're welcome, and I've tried my best over the years to try and figure out ways to be more accepting of compliments and things. It's still once again very weird to me to have people show appreciation for anything that I do. It's just, it's a weird personality quirk that I continue to have to this day. I'm continue to work on it, but I've decided that from now on, I'm just simply say, thank you very much. It means a lot to me. And I do appreciate the folks that are appreciative. So, I mean, yeah. I do appreciate it. And as you know, I mean, we don't really do what we do, whether it's serving on boards or doing a goofy podcast or whatever the case is. We don't really do these things for personal accolades or to hope in hopes that people are going to appreciate what we do. We do it because it's something we like to do, and it's our way of contributing back to things and stuff. So I mean, but I do appreciate it, and it was my pleasure to be able to. And thank you for helping to facilitate Dr. Riddle and agreeing to that, because I do feel like that was another very important conversation, and a very important chronicling of a life that needed to be done. So,
absolutely.
So thanks
Well
for
said.
your end of
said.
helping make that happen.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. I think you and I should have a joint therapy session together about just say thank you. Just say you're welcome. Because I worked in a firm that I'd helped create with a guy by the name of Dr. Cappy Leland, and he was the first, by coincidence, he was the first strategic planner that NAFA paid to come in and help get a bunch of maverick independent cats going in every direction, i.e. the NAFA board in 1990, 1991, and get him rowing in the same boat in the same direction. And it was tough. It was challenging. He was masterful at it. And someone I really respect. He lives not far, and we're still friends and in communication and work together. And I had the same issue about someone saying thank you and noting appreciation for what I'm doing. And I would always, this self-deprecating, I didn't do much and I wasn't involved, and this makes me feel very uncomfortable, and blah 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 blah. And Dr. Leland Cappy would lean over and whisper in my ear, Rob, just say thank you. Just say thank you and move on. Shut up, sit down, just say thank you. And that's hard for me. And I sense it might be initially at least hard for you. So
right there with you, brother.
Yeah. And it's like, okay. And this is a trained psychologist and he knows about organization. And he's okay, just move on. And yeah, so I've gotten a little better at that. I'm still a little bit uncomfortable with it because I don't like that much attention, It's nice to be acknowledged for stuff and appreciated. And he'd say, well, Rob, just remember, everyone appreciates being appreciated. So don't forget that principle. And he's taught me a lot. He's been a great mentor and a teacher. But sorry to dwell on that.
Yeah, not to digress.
Yeah, I totally digressed there. Sorry.
From your next task.
But your comment was so relatable because I can totally get into your space on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Just a very brief short story. I talk about this guy that I think very highly of a lot. He's a tremendous man and a great father and an amazing businessman. And he and I are very different culturally. And he grew up in the country. And I was a city kid from the East Coast when we met at 8. And my wife make fun. He said when he first saw me, he didn't know if he wanted to feel sorry for me or beat me up. So when I came to this little rural public school in central Oklahoma in 1968, and so we were, because this is relatable to you because you like Harris Hawks and have flown Harris Hawks, and you're on your second Harris Hawk. How many Harris Hawks have you flown?
Oh no, I've flown 2, 3, 4, probably at least a half a dozen.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's slightly less than I think I've flown. I think I flew 4 or 5. But anyway, we were flying 2 male Harris Hawks together, and we really, to us in Oklahoma, we were really into the declining jackrabbit population. We wanted to hunt them, and you could drive 3 or 4 miles from here at one time and get into hawkable game pops of jacks, and we can't do that anymore. So we have to drive. You can still find jacks in Oklahoma, but so we were out a number of times, and I was pretty proud. I'd worked hard on this bird, and we liked to fly in a cast together. It was fun, and great times as with the Harris Hawk. And this is 25, 30 years ago. And we were out in the field, and he just had this amazing bird. His name was Stormy. He was a male, hand-me-down Harris that he had really turned around, got it going. Well, I can do that too, and we got this little competitive thing going all the time. And we were out in the field, and we had a great flight, and they're near identical size, color, everything. And I was so excited. I caught my first jack with a Harris hawk. I was so excited, and I rushed in there. I was ahead of Mitch, and I thought his one's on the pole looking down at mine. And God, finally, in front of witnesses, God, and everybody, I caught my first jack with this little Tiercel Harris hawk. I was so proud of myself. And I'm down there making in, helping him out. And Mitch comes up and starts elbowing me and down on his knees and started messing with my bird and the prey. And I said, Mitch, what are you doing? I was looking up. This is kind of annoying and irritating. I don't need the help. I got this. It's my bird. It's all good. And he said, look up on that pole to your right. Just lean up, and that's your bird, Rob. You're on my bird. I was like, damn. How to be humbled.
Yeah, well, I think every falconer has a similar type of story, humbling or not or whatever. I mean, I've dug two sets, or I've dug both sets of talons out of from one bird out of two separate falconers' hands before.
Ouch.
So on and so forth. Everybody's got humbling stories.
Yeah.
So that's pretty funny though. So you had pretty similar equipment on, couldn't really tell the difference.
I was like, in my defense, I have no defense, but I wanted that bird to be mine so bad. You could taste it. And that's called confirmation bias. Yeah. I was blinded to the truth, and it was like, and then I looked at him. I guess that's not my bird. Oh man, I was miserable all the way home. He was rubbing it in every time. So,
yeah. There's nothing worse than a pouty falconer.
Oh yeah, I was just he couldn't. Yeah. And then when we have a particularly long flight, like you have a particularly spectacular duck flight, and we'll be with a group of people, and he'll say something like, why doesn't Rob ride back with you guys? And I go, well, what's up with it? Because there's going to be no living with him on the trip back home. That's just what we were talking about earlier. So.
Yeah, as has been said before, hell hath no fury as like a falconer with an empty game bag.
Oh, I know. It's you just become insufferable.
Well, that's awesome. Well, and I think that's pretty close to a good note to end on. But I do want to get your piece of advice, and then we can call it good.
Give me a little more
piece of advice. That's really just piece of advice you want to leave to current or prospective, falconers that are either getting into it or already in it. Or, I mean, what do you think is a good sentiment, or, something that's noteworthy?
Well, I think the best advice is life advice, but it's really applicable to falconry. And I got to meet and read Stephen Covey, the 7 Basic Habits of Highly Effective People. My dad used him in his organizations a lot, and he taught me a lot. And he's long passed away. And he told me, and his writings talk about and really emphasize this notion of seek first to understand, then be understood. And I really struggle with that. I'm going to be the first to tell you that I struggle with it every day. But I think my dad taught me that a lot, is really work hard at being a good listener. And that's probably one of my single biggest challenge in life, because, sometimes I talk and write for a living, and you just have to do that. But there's some real merit to the person next to you figuring out what you can learn from them, how you can learn from them to be better. And that is helpful to me. It's exciting to me to be able to, it keeps things fresh and interesting and learning. And that's why I like traveling. My wife likes traveling. That was one of the neatest trip that Dr. Ken Riddle and Rebecca Riddle really encouraged us to do, because my wife Carolyn was really unsure. And to close with this, I think I shared this with you, but it's pretty humbling to be in Riyadh on October and land on October 6th in the evening for the world's largest falconry conference, and that begins in a day or so, and you wake up the next morning and the Hamas-Israel war broke out at 9 o'clock that morning, and you're like 400 miles away from it. And it's like, wow, there's things that are a lot more important than falconry going on. But the falconry thing went on, and we felt very safe, and our hosts were more than gracious and hospitable, and we had a ball learning about different people and cultures, and more importantly, falconry, how they do that over there. And you gave a great presentation at the last NAFA meet about your observations and what goes on in the Middle East and falconry and how things have changed. And I thought it was fascinating. And I remember going up and telling you that, and it was pretty dang accurate about how different it is. They have challenges spelling in Arabic the word conservation. They just don't have that concept. And it's probably time, because we have someone here to replace me, right?
Yeah, let's go ahead and finish. We'll just wrap up real quick,
okay.
though. But yeah, no, go ahead and finish your thoughts.
Oh, that was it. That was it. I'm done.
All right. Well, cool. I mean, it's a good piece of advice to end on then. And thanks again. And we will, I don't know, have another talk at some point, I'm sure.
I hope so. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yep.